Today we are covering a story unfolding across the middle of the United States, where the region's power grid came within a hair of ordering emergency blackouts during one of the hottest stretches of the summer. We will walk through exactly what happened, why it happened, what the grid operator did to prevent a wider outage, and then we will move into the forecast, so you know what to expect in the days ahead if you live anywhere between North Dakota and Louisiana. On Monday evening, the regional grid operator responsible for keeping the lights on across 14 central states issued a stark warning. It said it might be forced to order rolling blackouts because the power system was teetering on the edge of an electricity shortfall. The organization behind this warning is known as the Southwest Power Pool, or SPP for short. Despite its name, the Southwest Power Pool does not just cover the desert Southwest. Its territory stretches in a long diagonal band from North Dakota in the north, down through Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and into Louisiana in the south. It is one of the largest grid operators in the country, coordinating electricity across a huge and diverse footprint. The trouble began when several power plants inside that territory unexpectedly tripped offline. In grid operations, a plant tripping offline means it suddenly stops generating electricity, sometimes due to mechanical failure, equipment protection systems, or the physical strain that extreme heat places on generating equipment. When multiple plants go down at once, the cushion of extra power that a grid operator keeps in reserve for emergencies gets thinner very quickly. That is exactly what happened here. Reserve margins, the buffer of spare generating capacity that exists precisely for moments like this, became razor-thin. At the same time, demand for electricity was spiking because a punishing heat wave had settled over the region. Millions of homes and businesses were running air conditioning at full capacity, pushing consumption to near record levels, with generation falling and demand climbing. The Southwest Power Pool found itself squeezed from both directions at once, around 6 in the evening Eastern Time. The Southwest Power Pool issued what is called a Level 3 energy alert for its western territory. In the language of grid operators, a Level 3 alert is serious. It means the operator has already begun using some or all of its emergency operating reserves just to keep up with demand. This is one step below actually cutting power to customers. Grid operators use these staged alerts as an early warning system, so that utilities, businesses, and the public can respond before things become critical, for example by voluntarily reducing electricity use during peak hours. Importantly, the Southwest Power Pool said it did not have to order rolling blackouts, even though the risk of doing so was high at the time. A rolling blackout is a controlled, temporary, and rotating interruption of power to different neighborhoods or areas, one at a time. Grid operators use this tool only as an absolute last resort, because the alternative, an uncontrolled cascading failure, is far more dangerous. A cascading failure can knock out power across an enormous area for an extended period, as the country has seen in a handful of infamous incidents over the past 2 decades. Grid watchers often point back to the winter storm that hit Texas in February of 2021, when a separate grid operator was forced into extended, uncontrolled outages that left millions without power for days in freezing temperatures. They also point to rolling blackouts ordered in California during a severe heat wave in August of 2020. Both events are frequently cited as cautionary tales for what happens when reserve margins are allowed to run to thin for too long. And they help explain why an operator like the Southwest Power Pool moves so quickly to raise the alarm the moment its cushion starts shrinking. By contrast, a rolling blackout, when it is used, is designed to protect the grid as a whole by spreading short, planned outages across many communities rather than risking a total collapse. A few hours after issuing the alert, the Southwest Power Pool ratcheted the threat level back down. That suggests that whatever combination of measures were used, drawing on reserves, importing power from neighboring grids, and slightly reduced demand as the evening cooled, was enough to walk the system back from the edge. At least for that night. It is worth pausing to explain why an alert like this gets attention beyond the region it affects. The American power grid is really a patchwork of regional systems, each managed by a different operator, and each with its own reserve margins, generation mix, and vulnerabilities. When heat waves stretch across multiple of these regions simultaneously, as they increasingly have in recent summers, it strains the ability of neighboring grids to help each other out, because everybody needs their spare capacity at the same time. Analysts who study grid reliability have pointed out for years that aging infrastructure, the retirement of some traditional power plants, and the growing frequency of extreme heat events are combining to put more pressure on operators like the Southwest Power Pool. None of that means blackouts are inevitable, but it does mean that these level 3 alerts, once relatively rare, are becoming a more familiar feature of summer news coverage. For residents and business owners in the affected states, the practical takeaway is simple. During future heat advisories, reducing electricity use during peak afternoon and early evening hours, when demand is highest, can make a meaningful difference in helping the grid avoid these emergency measures altogether. Now let's turn to the forecast. Because the heat behind this week's grid strain is not going away immediately, federal weather forecasters have been tracking a dangerous and prolonged stretch of heat across the central and southeastern United States that is expected to continue through the rest of July. Meteorologists have described this summer's pattern as one of the more persistent heat setups in recent memory, with a strong ridge of high pressure repeatedly building over the middle of the country and shifting only gradually from west to east. For the coming days, expect high temperatures well into the upper 90s and low 100s across much of the Southwest Power Pool's footprint, including cities like Wichita, Oklahoma City, Omaha, and communities across the Texas and Louisiana Gulf Coast. Humidity will make it feel considerably hotter than the thermometer suggests, with heat index values, meaning the feels-like temperature, likely climbing into the 100 to 110 degree range in several locations, and potentially higher in the most humid pockets near the Gulf. Overnight low temperatures are expected to offer only limited relief, staying unusually warm in many areas, which matters because homes and bodies both need cooler nights to recover from hot days. Meteorologists are also watching for scattered severe thunderstorms riding along the northern edge of the heat dome, moving through the northern plains and into the upper Mississippi Valley, bringing a risk of damaging winds, large hail, and locally heavy rainfall. That means some communities could face the double challenge of extreme heat in one part of the region and severe storm damage in another, all within the same footprint the grid operator is trying to manage. Given that combination, continued high electricity demand across the Southwest Power Pool's territory is likely in the days ahead, and additional energy alerts, possibly including further level 3 alerts, would not be surprising if temperatures peak as forecast. Residents in the affected states should stay tuned to official alerts from their local utility and from the National Weather Service, and should treat any advisory to conserve electricity during peak hours as a meaningful, practical way to help prevent a repeat of Monday's close call. For anyone living in the affected footprint, a few simple precautions can make a real difference over the coming days. Check in on elderly neighbors and relatives, since older adults and young children are most vulnerable to heat-related illness. Keep an eye out for symptoms like heavy sweating, dizziness, nausea, or confusion, which can signal heat exhaustion or, in more severe cases, heat stroke, and treat those as emergencies requiring immediate medical attention. Postpone strenuous outdoor activity to the early morning hours if possible. Stay hydrated throughout the day, and if the power does go out, avoid opening refrigerators and freezers unnecessarily to keep food safe for as long as possible. If your utility or local emergency management agency issues a request to conserve electricity, treat it as more than a suggestion. Small changes, like setting thermostats a few degrees higher during peak afternoon hours or delaying the use of major appliances until evening, add up across millions of households and can be the difference between a grid that holds steady and one that has to take more drastic action. To summarize, the Southwest Power Pool, which manages electricity across 14 central states, came close to ordering rolling blackouts on Monday evening after several power plants tripped offline during a serious heat wave, thinning out its emergency reserves. The operator issued a level 3 alert, its second most serious classification, before easing the alert a few hours later without having to cut power to customers. Meanwhile, forecasters expect the underlying heat wave driving this stress to persist across the central and southeastern United States through the rest of July, with dangerously high temperatures, elevated heat index values, and the risk of severe thunderstorms along the northern edge of the heat dome. That is our update for tonight. Thank you for listening, and stay safe out there.